evening, my name is Fong, and tonight I would like to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about how my internship experience, as well as my career aspirations, have led me through my journey in Wonderland. To begin my presentation, I wanted to read to you a quote from Alice in Wonderland. I knew who I was when I got up this morning, but I must have been changed several times since then. This quote represents such a large part of my life where I was confused. I had no idea where to turn because there were so many different career choices to make, and I wasn't really sure which one was the right one for me. However, for a few years, I thought that I wanted to become a teacher, which leads me directly into my internship with OCAC Head Start. Head Start is an organization that provides low-income families with resources such as childcare in the form of a learning center. When I first contacted them, I was placed in a classroom of about 14 3- to 5-year-old children. And in that classroom, I had responsibilities such as supervising children, filing paperwork, and my favorite part, teaching kids about new concepts. This could be something as simple as showing them how red and blue paint makes purple, or divert to more complex lessons involving diversity and acceptance of others. Although my internship experience at Head Start was truly incredible, I took away both positive and negative aspects of becoming a teacher. Beginning with what I enjoyed most about my internship, I loved teaching. Being able to have an everyday influence on these children and expand their knowledge was such a large highlight of my day. I also loved the teaching aspect of it. And I also love the individual aspect of it, where you got to really communicate with the students. I think that interpersonal communication is so important, especially when you're working in a field with children, because that's how you build their trust. And with more trust comes more learning. But by far, my favorite part of this internship came in the form of tangible results. Being able to see the effects of my efforts is such a large motivator for me because I can physically see what I've produced. To demonstrate, I thought I would tell you a short story about a little girl in my classroom who was 5 years old, and no one had ever taught her how to write her name. She didn't even know the first letter of her name. And so when I was made aware of this, I decided to take it upon myself to teach her. However, I soon realized that she had never been taught how to write letters at all, so we had to start from the very basics of drawing lines and connecting them and working through each individual letter. However, at the end of the week, she brought me a piece of paper, and on that paper, she'd drawn a picture. Around the picture, she had written her name over and over again, all by herself. This was such a defining moment for me during my internship because it was the moment I realized I wanted to make this kind of impact on children for the rest of my life. I wanted to make this into a career. However, there were ultimately a couple of things that drew me away from wanting to become a teacher. And the first thing was the group setting. I felt that the group setting took away from that individual interaction that I prioritized so much. I also didn't like the repetitive schedule. For me, at Head Start, there was a schedule posted on the wall of what you were supposed to do, when you were supposed to do it, down to the minute. And after a few weeks of being in this exact same routine, it started to get very mundane. And I realized that I needed a career that would allow me to have more versatility throughout my week. At this point after my internship, this quote summarizes exactly how I felt. Who in the world am I? That's the great question. I really didn't know who I was anymore because for so many years, I built upon this idea of wanting to become a teacher. And after this one internship experience, I realized that this was not what I wanted to do at all. So I knew that I had to change directions, but I wasn't really sure where to start. So I began by taking the two things that I loved the most about my internship. The first thing was my love for individual interaction with children, and my second thing was my love for tangible results. For years, I'd associated these two things with becoming a teacher. I thought that teaching was the only occupation that would allow me to carry out these two things on a daily basis. But after my internship, I was left in a state of confusion. So I began talking to my mom, who's a physical therapist assistant, and she introduced me to the career field of becoming a speech-language pathologist, otherwise known as a speech therapist. As a speech therapist, I would be able to have that individual interaction through therapy sessions, but I would also very much be able to see tangible results. I began to explore this career further, and I decided to start job shadowing Miss Debbie Foster, a certified speech pathologist at the Myers Center. I currently have about 30 hours under her, and I could not be loving it more. Being able to witness what she does on a daily basis has really solidified my thought that I want to become a pediatric speech therapist in the future. A speech-language pathologist is someone who diagnoses and treats communication disorders. A few of the ones that I thought worth mentioning were stuttering, which is problems with fluency of communication; articulation disorders, which is when an individual has a hard time forming a certain word or making a certain sound; and aphasia, which is due to injury in the brain that causes language processing, reading, and writing delays. Communication disorders are actually a lot more prevalent than people may think. In fact, 1 in 6 Americans has a communication disorder. That's 17% of our population. In addition to that, 1 in 12 children has a communication disorder. The amazing thing about both of these statistics is that so many of their problems can be minimized through one, early intervention, which is when a diagnosis is made before the age of 5, as well as regular therapy sessions with a speech pathologist. To go into a little more detail about what exactly a speech pathologist does when they meet with a patient, it consists of 3 main stages. The first one being the diagnostic stage. This is where a speech pathologist will look at their patient's medical history to see if they possibly inherited a communication disorder, and they will also perform tests and examinations just to get a feel for where their patient is starting at developmentally. Next, they move on to create a plan of action, and this is where they really get to know their patient and create an individualized treatment plan that pertains to their individual's needs as well as their goals. And finally, they move on to the actual implementation of that treatment. This can range from anything from showing them how to improve on their reading and writing skills, to working on mouth formation and improving articulation, to even teaching them sign language if they have problems communicating verbally at all. There are a few key skills that every good speech pathologist should have, and as you can probably imagine, good communication is at the top of the list. However, good communication isn't only important between the speech pathologist and their patient, but especially in the case of pediatric speech therapy, it's important that there's good communication with the parents as well. This is because oftentimes the parents want to sit in on their child's therapy sessions, so it's really the job of a speech pathologist to be able to communicate both clearly and effectively so that the parents understand their child's communication disorder and can help them improve at home. Next is being detail-oriented. When you work with premature babies who obviously can't say any words, small things such as babbling, which is the repetition of a certain sound or syllable, are big indicators of whether or not a child is on the right track to developing proper communication. And of course, as with any profession in the health field, patience and compassion are of utmost importance. Sometimes you have to work for a patient for years on end before you see any drastic improvements. And because of this, it's important that you're staying persistent in your treatment methods to ensure ultimate success for your patient. In order to become a speech pathologist, my plan is to attend Missouri State University and obtain a bachelor's degree in communication sciences and disorders, as well as a master's degree in speech-language pathology. Afterwards, I hope to work in a private clinic. All of these insights that I've spoken to you about today wouldn't have been possible without my participation in a program known as Kickapoo U. Within the first 2 years of high school, we're asked to choose a career cluster as well as job shadow 3 professionals. In addition to that, we should have at least 150 hours of volunteerism by the time we graduate our senior year. But by far the most beneficial part of this program has been the internship and capstone portion. Without these 2 courses, I would still be stuck thinking that I wanted to be a teacher, and I would be giving you a presentation about something completely different right now. So to end my presentation, I wanted to leave you with one last quote. If you don't know where you're going, any road can take you there. This quote spoke volumes to me because it's all about finding a passion. Without a passion in life, it really doesn't matter what path you take. Thanks to Kickapoo U, with all of my amazing experiences, I've been able to find my passion. And even though I may not know exactly where I want to end up 6 years from now, what I do know is that my love for children and my determination for success will get me there. Thank you.